Okay, we're continuing now with our coverage of Chapter 5. We just finished, I think, the discussion here of recognizing phrases and clauses. This will be something that we've seen before and something that will continue to be relevant to us. Using short sentences. You know, sometimes we feel like to be appreciated, to be respected, to sound educated, we use long sentences. But in fact, if we want the reader to understand our message, then it's better to keep sentences short. Keep in mind that in business we really focus on getting the message across clearly, concisely is it, complete, coherent, and of course correct. We value economy of effort. Sorry, Natasha Sargent just stuck her head in the office, so I was distracted a little bit. Emphasizing important ideas. Position the most important idea at the beginning of the sentence. Make sure the most important idea is the subject of the sentence, and place that main idea in a shorter sentence. Feature the main point as clearly and as prominently as you can. Use the active voice for most sentences. Notice in these sentences here, the active voice is, we lost money. The active voice says, I sent the email message yesterday. The passive voice is going to be used to de-emphasize the performer. So instead of saying, we lost money, money was lost. It's implied that, you know, in most cases, who lost the money. The email message was sent yesterday, instead of saying, I sent the email message yesterday. Particularly when we are conveying bad news to someone. We typically will want to de-emphasize the actors. If it's a decision we made, we'll talk about not we made the decision not to hire you, but to say a decision was made, or to even as best we can to imply that the person is not going to be hired. And when a customer, for instance, where we want to maintain that relationship, and we very often do, they made a mistake. Maybe we didn't fill their order in time because they didn't complete the application or the order correctly. Instead of saying you didn't complete the order form correctly, we can say the order form was not correctly completed. And so we de-emphasize them, and therefore we're not trying to blame some particular person for doing it. Developing parallelism. Sentences written so that parts are balanced are easier to read and understand. And so you can see here the problem. Our primary goals are to increase productivity, reduce cost, and the improvement of product quality. We can see there's a lack of parallelism completely here. We've got a goal to increase productivity, that's a verb, increase, reduce cost, reduce, and the improvement of product quality, but of course the improvement is a noun. So we don't have the parallelism that we could. So here's a way to rewrite that. Here's the solution. Our primary goals are to increase productivity, reduce costs, and improve product quality. Notice here that we've got the verb form that is consistent here in attaining that balance, that parallelism. Avoid dangling modifiers and avoid misplaced modifiers. A dangling modifier describes or limits a word that is missing from the sentence. Kind of it's dangling, it's out there by itself without something to modify. And then a misplaced modifier occurs when the word or phrase it describes is not close enough. It's out of place. It's somewhere else. Let's look at some examples here. A dangling modifier. To be hired, an application must be completed. Well, of course, you're not going to hire an application. You're going to hire someone. So to be hired, you must complete an application. Or to be hired, a candidate must complete an application. So here's a couple of ways to revise that. Misplaced modifier is one which is where the actor or the item being modified is in the sentence. It's just in the wrong position. The patient was referred to a psychiatrist with a severe emotional problem. Well, it's kind of humorous. But it's not the psychiatrist that has a severe emotional problem. So there's a problem of a misplaced modifier here. And so here's a good revision of that. The patient with a severe emotional problem was referred to a psychiatrist. You know, it's helpful, I think, to note here, there are people, of course, who will say, well, you know what they meant. And it's true, you may know what the meaning is, but sometimes it can be humorous, like the story of the woman who went for a walk with her dog in a long evening gown. Well, it sounds the way that sentence is worded. It's the dog that was wearing the long evening gown, and of course it was the woman. That's a misplaced modifier. And sometimes those things can be humorous, sometimes they can be misleading, but either way, you know, it's not enough for you and me as educated people to say, well, you know what I meant, as if the only thing is to, you know, get your point across. We want to do better than that. You know, you want to make your communication clear, concise, complete, correct, and coherent. It's great if you're known for, you know, being a clear communicator, and not someone who, you know, makes those kinds of mistakes that will, you know, give cause for others to laugh or remember your communication for the wrong reason. Building well-organized paragraphs. Of course, I think everybody hopefully knows that the symbol for paragraph is that backward P symbol there. In drafting effective paragraphs, discuss only one topic in each paragraph. Arrange the sentences in a strategic plan. Really, all that means is, you know, think about what you're doing. Think about constructing your paragraph in such a way so that it can have its clearest effect, and the best be understood in the clearest terms, and as concise as can be, and correctly expressed, and all those things. Link ideas to build coherence. I mentioned in class the example, when a snowball rolls down the hill, it gets bigger because snow coheres to it. It sticks to it. The idea of coherence is that a particular message, it flows, it's well connected, it's a single unit in one sense, that all the parts contribute to make for a clear, concise, complete, coherent, correct message. Use transitional expressions for coherence. Compose short paragraphs for effective business messages. Let's look at each of these ideas here. Discussing only one topic in each paragraph. Group similar ideas together and start a new paragraph for each new topic. Let me back up just a moment there for that. In class, I mentioned the idea of similar ideas. For instance, let's say you're telling a customer, your communication is an advertisement or some kind of a news release about a given new product. You want to talk about maybe the product qualities. You want to talk about the product price. Talk about availability. You know, how to order one, or when it's going to be available, and those kind of things. What kind of customer service goes with it? You know, whether or not it has a money-back guarantee. Well, you don't want to, for instance, if there are issues about availability and how you're going to get it, that delivery, you know, how you order, how it's going to be sent to you, what price you pay, how you pay. Those really are similar ideas related to how you're actually going to place your order. Other issues of product quality, you know, what it does and how it does it, and maybe even any guarantees, that might be another segment. Think in terms of crafting your message so that similar ideas are grouped together. There are three main ways to arrange sentences in a strategic plan. That is to construct, for instance, your paragraphs. Direct plan, a pivoting plan, and an indirect plan. Actually, we talked quite a bit about the direct plan and the indirect plan to some degree. With the direct plan, the main sentence is followed by supporting sentences. In other words, you're going to front load your primary message, and then later on you're going to provide other details or supporting statements. Most business messages are going to be constructed in the direct plan. You're going to provide information, you're going to tell them about a product, you're going to give good news or congratulations in the direct format primarily. So the direct plan, the direct approach is useful in most business messages. It clarifies the subject or identifies the subject immediately. It's useful defining, informing, classifying, describing things. A pivoting plan is one we haven't talked about before. In a pivoting plan, you open with some sort of limiting sentence or sentences, followed by the main sentence and then supporting sentences. It offers a contrasting or negative idea before delivering the topic sentence. And it's useful for comparing and contrasting. You have to make clear the turn and direction by using but or however. You know, for instance, I was talking in class about sometimes in talking to prospective students. You know, somebody comes in and says, you know, I'm really interested in majoring in marketing. Well, man, I wish we had a marketing major, but we don't. But the truth is that a lot of, I think for a lot of students, keeping your options open at the undergraduate level is a good idea. So I might say, you know what, we don't have a marketing major. I really wish we did. And in fact, we're working toward trying to add a marketing major. However, you know, unless you are set on a career path that requires a very focused major, like accounting or management information systems, both of those, you know, with accounting, if you want to be an accountant, then you really need a major in accounting, because sitting for the uniform CPA exam, for instance, requires that you have a certain specific accounting classes. However, if you say, somebody says, I want to major in marketing because I want to open my own business one day, I say, wow, well, you know what? A business administration major is a great major for that, because not only do you get a solid background in liberal arts and also, of course, in the business core, professional component, you also get a lot of flexibility. You could take a class in small business management. You could take a class in marketing research. You could take a class in personnel and human resource management. In other words, keeping your options open at the undergraduate level, I think, is a good idea. And you can specialize through graduate school, through internships, even through the job market. Well, anyway, that's kind of the way I use the pivoting plan to say, you know, we don't offer this, but here's what we do. And there's a good, you know, there's something, you know, worth considering here. Now, the indirect plan, again, we're familiar with here. If someone's not going to be receptive to your ideas, indirect plan is a good way to start. You build a case, you've got supporting sentences, and then you hold off on the main idea until later on. You give your evidence, you give the rationale. Sometimes even in the indirect approach, you can imply the bad news rather than to say it outright. And of course, an indirect plan is not just for bad news, but it typically is going to be for situations where the receiver is not going to be, you know, open-minded or is not interested in receiving the message. It may be bad news, or it may just be a persuasive circumstance. Effective paragraphs, linking ideas to build coherence. Sustain the key idea by repeating or rephrasing it. Paraphrasing it, for instance, use a pronoun. Dovetail sentences. A dovetail just means a nice joint, a connection within the paragraph of one idea to another, or I should say in linking paragraphs. Using transitional expressions for coherence. Things like additionally, also, as a result. For instance, going from one paragraph to another, you might say something, well, as a result, or for example, or because of this, then, you know, so a number of expressions can be used to help link paragraphs and to help to build coherence in your connections, you know, within your document. Okay, well, here again, there's a document here that is poorly written. It can use some improvement, and we're not going to do these we didn't do these in class, and we will do some other things, I think, to emphasize this. I'm not so interested in this particular exercise, but it gives you some suggestions about how you might organize a document. Anyway, that's the end of that video.